Hello viewers, Enjoy Tactics here, and today I will be introducing to you RAM. Now here I have three different types of RAM. We have RAM with moving parts, we have solid state RAM, and we have BUD based RAM over here. And I'll also be showing you how to build compact RAM, like such, because it's important that you know how to build compact RAM, because if you don't, what you learn right here will be pretty much useless in practice, because if you actually build anything that needs RAM, you're probably not going to want to build these big modules that aren't stackable and they're difficult to implement. So over here we have our first type of RAM. This RAM is simple. It can save 1 bit of information, which is pretty much the standard for all RAM, which means an on or an off signal, a bit, binary digit, and you should be pretty familiar with bits if you've been following me for a while. So this is write, this is read, and this is save. There are the three different functions on this module and every other RAM module. So what write does is it can write a 1 or a 0. This is 0, this is 1. Simple enough. And as you can see, the read and the write require a constant signal, whereas the save doesn't. That's why I put a button. And we can write just like this. Let's say I want to write a 1. I will flick the lever down, and then we can save. So now it's saved. Now none of this affects the output, meaning that the write and the save cannot immediately affect the output. So we just saved a 1. Now we're going to read it out, and it's going to read out 1. And you can also interpret that as an on signal in Redstone. And now we have a 0. This was a 1, this is a 0. I'm going to save 0, and we're going to read it, and it reads out 0. Now some people would say, oh well, it didn't change the state of the redstone, therefore I can validly say that 0 is no information at all. But that's actually not valid to say, because 0 is just as valid of information as 1 is. I originally thought, way back when I was learning about RAM, that 0 is the same as no information, and the only information is 1. Because clearly it doesn't change the redstone state, but the best way to think of it is that 0 is information being transported through the wire, even though the wire is already default set to 0. That's why many people say when you're clearing RAM, you set it to 0, because you can't really clear it. It's either 0 or 1, and you can never change that. So yeah, I just wanted to clear up any confusion about 0. It's just as valid, so don't discriminate. Alright, so that was the first RAM module, and it's a bit impractical, because in real life, we don't use RAM with moving parts, because when you save a program, let me ask you a question. Do you hear noises, little pistons firing off inside of your computer? No, you don't. That's because your computer uses the next type, which is solid state. Solid state doesn't use moving parts at all, and that's how your computer works. It doesn't use any moving parts. It uses circuits. And this RAM is exactly the same as this, but no moving parts. Here's our output. I guess I'll just demonstrate that it works. We're going to write 1, save it, and then we're going to read out 1. We're going to save a 0, and might as well read the 0, and it's working just fine. So this is the last type. And the last type, the only thing it's really good for, the only advantage it really has over these other two types of RAM, is that you can actually make it stackable and very easy to implement realistically. Because these other two types, to be honest, they're not as easy to actually make a realistic version of, where you can apply it to things, than the BUD based RAM is. Before we actually take a look at how BUD memory works, I'd like to take a look at BUDs themselves. In case you don't understand BUDs, I'm going to give you a quick example of how they work. So essentially, a piston is supposed to activate and extend only when powered directly, kind of like this. Okay, but it doesn't do that. It should be powered in any of these ways and extend, and it does. But this is one way that was not originally intended for it to be powered, and it actually works. So you can do this, and if you power the block right here, or the block right here, you can also power the block right here, or here, and I believe powering a block 2 blocks above it, like such, will also work. But anyways, if I do that, we can see that it is going to actually update it. So I can do this and break this, and it will still stay extended even though nothing is powering it. We have to update it, and that's the idea behind buds, is that I can power the block right here, but it won't do anything until I update this. And once again, this shouldn't happen. It's kind of a glitch, but it does happen. And we can actually use that here in this RAM, and we can see that write does nothing until we save it. And saving it basically will simply update this piston by pushing out this piston right next to it. And this blue right here is used to depict the fact that this is the save function, right? And this green is used to say that it's read, and this the yellow is used to say that it is write. Okay. And also, I just want to change this up a bit to make it a little bit more apparent that this is the write function. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to change this to yellow. Alright, there we go. So now I've changed it. I just like to color code everything to make it really easy to understand and see what's going on. So just keep in mind that green is read, yellow is write, and blue is save. So over here, as you can see, I have changed this to yellow. I was using a redstone block, but I've just changed it to yellow with a torch under it so that you will know it is the write. So we're going to write A1 and save it, updates the piston, and then no matter what I do, it won't do anything until I save it again. So we're going to save a 1 and read it, and we can clearly see it's 1 or on. Okay. Now that we know the 3 different types of RAM, I'm going to explain just very briefly how they work. Okay. And let me just put all of these items away. Alright, so the way this works is it uses repeater locks. It will write the information, but it doesn't do anything until you unlock it. And by default, this is locked. And the only way you can unlock it is by clicking this button, which is the save button. It saves it, then locks it, so you can't change it. So it is effectively saved, and then this piston will pull up a block so that it can actually transfer through the block and into the output. And that's how this works. Moving on to the next one. It works in much the same way, except we want to eliminate this piston. The way I did that is I inverted this again. I inverted the output, and I also inverted the what did I invert? I inverted the yellow, right? So if I power this, so basically it's a double inversion. So this isn't inverted at all, goes straight through. This inverts once and then twice. So inverting twice does nothing except for add 2 ticks, and there's our output. So same exact situation over here, except it's inverted twice. Okay, and that effectively does nothing but eliminate this piston. Alright, and this last type right here, I've already explained how it works, so I'm not going to go over it again. Alright, so I just want to briefly explain how this particular module works. And in this little bit here, I did it incorrectly. You actually have to make these levers 1 block farther, like in this particular case here, than I actually did. So don't make them like this, where they're right next to each other, because then this torch updates this piston, and you do not want that. because then your RAM doesn't work. But over here I did it right. So basically, the read is very simple. It's just inverted. This piston pushes down, and whenever we flip this, it pulls up so that the information can go through. And over here we have the write, and if we go over here we can see it turns out to be kind of a zigzag, and the way it works is it buds this piston, and I don't actually, yeah, I need the block, I just don't need the redstone here, but I'll put it there just for looks. So whenever this piston is budded, we have to update it in order to save the information. So we're going to hit save. It will use this piston and power it to update this one and update the information. And that way it's going to show a 1, but it won't let it go through until we read it. And then we read out 1. And we can also save a 0. Read it, and it's a 0. So we have RAM that actually works, and it is stackable, and it's very easy to use. It's also pretty quick. I don't know the exact timings because I haven't really checked. I just know that it works. So thank you guys for watching. I do have a few announcements to say real quick. I'll be going into high school soon. That means less time for videos, and I've been learning to program a few different languages, which also takes away from my time. So that will also take away from my video making time. So I'm sorry for that, but I do like to learn how to program, and I'm taking a few advanced classes in high school or 9th grade for my international people. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Basically what it boils down to is less time for videos, but I will post on Twitter or Facebook, or I'll somehow let you guys know if I have to stop making videos for a period of time. But I will try to make them as frequently as possible. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a rating, comment, and subscribe.